Also guys, that we are back ranking all of the Covenant abilities, and I bet some of you are just gonna wonder where A-Bomb is on the list. So we're gonna start off with back-to-back Venthyr abilities. The next one is Chain Harvest, and we are getting into the really good abilities. So I love Chain Harvest, even though it feels like it was designed for enhanced shamans. Because it benefits from Maelstrom, it still works well with Elemental and Resto because it hits and heals so damn hard, and it cools down quicker based on if it crits or not. Just overall a very, very fun ability. This next one's a bit of a weird choice. Fallen Order. Fallen Order seems like it would be it wouldn't be that fun by looking at it, like looking at the tooltips or whatnot. But then leveling with Fallen Order, it's actually not that bad. I love the little clones that come out, and each different types of clones does different things, depending on your spec. It doesn't directly provide any defense for Brewmaster, but it does do Breath of Fire, which is like a 5% damage reduction. And I could be wrong, but it seems to favor your spec in terms of what clones spawn, which is very, very cool. Next one, this also might be a weird pick as well, because I know most people don't like it, but I do, and it's Door of Shadows. Not only does it look like better than Soul Shape, but using it has saved my life many, many times in progression, especially on Soul Render Dormazane and Painsmith. And a minute cooldown on it seems just about right for that sort of ability. I have mentioned using Door of Shadows on my Soul Render Dormazane and Painsmith Rasnell commentaries. It is very, very useful. The next one is Impending Catastrophe. Impending Catastrophe is a really cool spell. You're hurling this like massive red bolts, and you can see it slowly make its way to your target, and it puts a curse on your target and anything else nearby. And I think that's what I like most about it, is that it applies a curse for you. Out of the many, many, many boss pulls I've done in this expansion on my main Warlock, I've never put a single curse on anything. And it is a dot as well, so it does benefit from Malefic Rapture for Affliction. Just, once again, overall a good ability. I just won't rank it as high as some of the others. Sepsis. Sepsis feels okay. The idea of giving you access to stealth ability if the dot expires is kind of cool. Especially for subtlety, because you can gain exposed weakness. Let me just mute that. Again, just like Unholy Transfusion, it's not really anything bad about it. I just wouldn't race it as high as some of the others. Next up I've got on the list is Resonating Arrow. Resonating Arrow I was very interested to hear about, because it's like you place it down and you can damage shit even if it's behind something, which I thought was really cool, as long as they're in the circle, but it's not really utilized that much, which really sucks. And the ability itself is kind of boring, but I still have fun with Resonating Arrow, especially as survival. Now we're getting to the really good abilities, and I've been saying this name wrong for a long time. While I think this is correct, it's Elysian Decree. Elysian Decree is amazing. It's just a big blue sigil that explodes like a nuclear bomb. It does so much damage. I remember one of our healers saying he was in Torghast, and he got his Elysian Decree to hit for 1 million damage in Torghast, which blew my mind. Again, it doesn't provide defense for Vengeance, but it does provide souls, which is what Vengeance is more or less sort of based around, healing up the damage instead of mitigating it. So Elysian Decree does work well, it really does, especially for Demon Hunter tanks because of the fire and whatnot. Next one is also a bit weird, Mirrors of Torment. I love Mirrors of Torment, especially as fire, funnily enough, because it improves your burst during combustion by reducing the cooldown of your fire blast, which I thought was a really good decision, instead of giving you like hot streak procs or whatnot. And I believe for the other specs, it gives you Brain Freeze and Clear Casting procs. I could be wrong by saying that, but it does. It works very well. It works very, very well. Just increases your damage overall with the mirrors, although it isn't the best for mages, and I understand that. Next one is going to be the most controversial one, but I will stand my ground. Kindred Spirits. At first glance, I thought this ability was going to be the only was going to be a support ability, as in this will not work at all if you have like no one to put it on. And boy, was I proven so wrong. Not only did I realize that you can apply it to yourself if you wish, but it changed my mind on support spells, especially the other support spell, which we're going to get to later. Even though it doesn't surpass Convoke and Ravenous Frenzy in terms of how good they are performance-wise, I would still play with this ability. And it gives different benefits for yourself or for other partners you bonded with, which is really, really cool. Next one, Abomination Limb. Abomination Limb is arguably one of the most coolest abilities visually. I love how it provides good benefits while it's up for all these specs. However, why it's not higher is because it has no defense. Seems like a running theme with these abilities, but the utility carries it so much. Like having or being a blood Necrolord DK is really, really helpful in raids, especially on Sovereign Adormazane. So Abomination Limb, big thumbs up. Similarly, I put Ashen Hollow. Ashen Hollow is very unique for multiple different reasons. First off, I don't actually know another ability in the game or another cooldown in the game that has a 4-minute cooldown. Usually they're 1, 2, 3, or even 5 minutes. Second is that it interacts with Hammer of Wrath, allowing an extra cooldown you can use with it. And lastly, people refer to it as a healing cooldown where it belongs to a tank spec, which I find quite funny, but also very true, as the benefits of Ashen Hollow are quite big if you have a Venthyr Paladin in your raid. Next one, Spear Bastion. The famed Spear Bastion. It is very interesting because on paper it seems like an ability for tanks, because it has that sort of vortex tied into it, which is awesome. But it really isn't. Maybe it was at the start of the expansion, but later on when they introduced the legendary, it started to outperform Ancient Aftershocks, which I was quite surprised about. And the animation is cool. You're holding a spear for half a second, you throw it into the ground, and it leaves behind this bright blue tethering pool, which is really, really cool. I'm going to put two together for this one. So, Ancient Aftershock. Ancient Aftershock is cool. It is very, very cool. It has no defense though. And that seems to be a running trend with most of these tank abilities, especially the Necrolord ones, I think. Yes, I know that it does knock mobs down and such, but it doesn't work on bosses. So it's just there for a huge damage burst, which is what I like. And again, the animation is awesome. So similar to Abomination Limb, it's just there for the damage. And I've put together with Ancient Aftershock is Feline Stomp. Because it has mainly because it has a similar animation and it has some similar playstyle to it. Why I put Feline Stomp above Ancient Aftershock is because it is fun to play. Yes, it requires you to be in the sort of animation to trigger the cooldown reset, but I don't mind it. And even though it's an 8% chance to reset it, it's still very decent. It's not like a 1 in a million thing. Next one I put up is Serrated Bone Spike. This is the only ability that got changed completely, going from alpha to live. This ability is 100% more fun in Mythic Plus because of the clever stuff that you can do with Serrated Bone Spikes in terms of gaining combo points, which is really, really cool. In a single target situation, it's boring as crap, but it does sort of make up for it by doing permanent damage. Which I thought was a weird but very cool take on Serrated Bone Spike. Next one, actually we're going to have quite a few Necrolord abilities in a row here. Conqueror's Banner. Slightly above it, I didn't think I would put it this one that high, but I know it's nowhere near as a good ability as the other warrior ones, but I think I like it. One of my streamers that I follow regularly, Touchpad Warrior, he went for a Necrolord Warrior at the beginning of expansion, and seeing clips of him decimating people in arenas and shit got me thinking, I should get a Necrolord Warrior. And it does have that support element to it, although we are going to talk about another ability about supporting. Even though it's like a slow prevention or some shit, I think it deserves its place where it is. Next one, I put the only passive ability, which is Fodder to the Flame. Fodder to the Flame is, to my knowledge, the ability to have the most changes done to it during its lifetime, alpha, beta, and live. I remember Fodder to the Flame being a 3-minute cooldown that summons a demon, which gets one shot by your throw glaive, which wasn't part of its first form of the alpha. Gave you 20% damage increase or something, but that was a long time ago. Then all of a sudden I log into my Necrolord Demon Hunter, looking for the ability, and I find it under the passives, which got me really curious. So I tried it out, and it was fun. It does decent damage. It does give you a Demon Soul, which I thought was really, really cool, which gives you a 20% damage increase. But I know it's not as good as the other Demon Hunter abilities. Next one is another very visually awesome looking spell. It's Deathborn. When I first saw Deathborn, the skeleton model thing, I was like, holy shit, this looks cool. It just turns you into a massive skeleton mage and makes your basic spell cleave as Fire and Frost. And it looks awesome as well. And it works well with your Hot Streaks and Frost procs. And I love the legendary that comes with it, the chance that you proc the Deathborn, not because of the damage, because of how fucking cool this thing is. It was really awesome. And it fits well with its cooldowns as well, which surprisingly is really hard for Mage. Next one is the other Mage spell, Shifting Power. I don't know why this is above Deathborn, but something about Shifting Power just makes it seem more fun to use. The animation looks awesome. You're exploding in Fey magic at the same time reducing the cooldown of all your spells. Even works with things like your interrupt, so you can do some pretty cool stuff with Shifting Power, but people just use it with the intention of reducing your combustion, your icy veins, and I love being able to move with Shifting Power if you've got the legendary too. Next one, we've got our very last Kyrian ability is Echoing Reprimand. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Echoing Reprimand, even without the legendary, is quite fun, and it was cool to figure out how to handle the Anima Charge combo points. You just use the ability and then you immediately use the Spender. Most of the time that works, but on the odd case that it doesn't, it can take a couple tries to actually consume it. But similar with another ability we'll mention later on, is that you have until the ability comes off cooldown again, which I thought was a smart move going with Echoing Reprimand. I had my doubts about the legendary as well, because I wasn't sure if it would Anima charge 4 combo points or charge the 4th one. But that legendary seems a bit overpowered. Next one, I think we're in the top 10 now. Adaptive Swarm. Adaptive Swarm is fun, especially if you've got the legendary, because it can split into 2 each time it jumps, which most of the time it does, and it's really funny watching it just jump while you're miles away from the closest person. I mainly talk about when you're being taxi driven in Spies of Ascension. But yet again, it lacks defense. I don't think any of the Necrolord tank abilities gives any defense, really, which is kind of ironic. But the benefit it does give via extra dot effectiveness is really nice, especially for Feral, since it has a ton of bleeds. Next one is the Hunt. The Hunt is graphically amazing, and it's almost on par with Abomination Limb. If I had to rate every single ability based on their animation, I would probably put the Hunt as number 3. There's very little to dislike about the Hunt. It's a super long range ability. It's like 45 yards or something ridiculous. It looks spectacular and does a fair chunk of damage, and it only has a minute of downtime for the tank benefit which it gives, which I thought was really, really cool. Slightly above the Hunt though is Mind Games. I was very on the fence with Mind Games at the start. The effect that it gives is a little weird, but I suppose that's why it's called Mind Games. As well as the reverse effect on the damage and the healing definitely makes it unique and stand out to the others. The weird thing I would say is that as level 57, when I was leveling, it hits for about 3k. Once I hit 58 and 59, it started hitting for 8k, which is really weird. But anyway, top 5 now. And I'm not going to lie, this was super, super, super hard to decide, but the whole top 10 was actually super hard. But I'm just going to say top 5 are all joint number 1, because this is really, really hard for me to decide. But at the top 5, number 5, we have Fleshcraft. Fleshcraft is undeniably one of the best Covenant abilities of all time, and it always will be. And I love the fact that you can, what do you call it? You can like get different benefits based on what mobs you drain your essence from. Especially if you're using the Plague Deviser Marrow the Soulbind and the cool little healing bonus. The buff that is that Fleshcraft got midway through the first patch definitely did make it feel a little bit better, but I don't think it was necessary, and I think it was fine. But that's just me though, and I can say that like when you're channeling it, the channel animation is amazing. I just always love using that ability just because of how awesome it looks. And the shield it gives kind of reminds me of a shield that someone like Gul'dan would have, which is really, really cool. And Fleshcraft as well got a little bit better with the extra damage reduction, and quite funnily enough, something that isn't realised is that while you're channeling it, it gives you a DR, so you can use it just for that, because your shield can just go straight away if you're in a raid environment, which is really, really awesome to figure out. Number 4 is Condemn. I don't know why people dislike Condemn. It feels really fun to play, especially as arms, and especially during Castle Nathria. Back when I played a warlock, a warrior, and a priest on Huntsman Ultimate, I would just have fun condemning the hell out of those Gargons and the boss once all the Gargons died. Yes, it can be used defensively for prot warriors, but I'd say the rage spent on Condemn would be better spent on Ignore Pain or Shield Block, which is why it is down on my list. Condemn is still fun as hell to play, especially in PvP. Like our raid leader Daki used to complain a lot about Condemn, and me being me, I was just like, lol, because I played a warrior a lot during the beginning expansion. Next one, top 3, Decimating Bolt. This was my original pick for my warlock. I wanted to stick with Decimating Bolt so bad, but goddamn was I so pissed when I had to go to Night Fae for Soul Rot because I wasn't doing enough damage with the setup my warlock had. The whole idea of this being an execute ability, getting bigger demon bolts as the HP of the mob gets lower, that's why I find it better than Condemn. And the legendary packs quite a punch with it, and you can get some big fat demon bolts, which is very satisfying as hell. So Decimating Bolt is 100% one of the best abilities of all time for me. The final 2, this was not as hard to pick as number 3, 4, and 5. But this will be Blessing of the Seasons. Now I had number 1 and 2 originally swapped the other way around. But I think Blessing of the Seasons does have its place. It's sort of a combination between like the Paladin Blessings and the Moon Spell. So you've got 4 buffs you can put on anyone, which was not part of its first form in the alpha. And then it changes to a different buff, and it has one for everyone as well. There's a tank one, there's a healing one, there's a DPS one, there's one you can use for all of them. It's just awesome. I love playing Blessing of the Seasons. And which means my favourite covenant ability of all time, and always will be Flayed Shot. Who thought that a hunter ability would be at number 1? First of all, Flayed Shot is ridiculously fun with the way you can constantly get kill shot procs from it doing damage. It just adds another fun ability to press, especially because of it. It's sort of an execute ability, sort of. Not only is proc chance decent, much like Feline Stomp, but its very low downtime makes it somewhat competitive to the other top covenants of other classes, and competitive in other aspects. And the fact that it doesn't need a legendary to make it more fun, on top of everything else, I think it really deserves its spot in the top 5 for me personally, and it deserves to be my favourite covenant ability of all time. And I'm confident it will stay that way in 9.2. So that is my list of all of the covenant abilities ranked. I know a lot of people are going to hate me for not putting abilities like Convoke the Spirits, Divine Toll as high. I just don't find them that fun personally. I'd be curious to see what you guys think your favourite covenant ability is down in the comments. But that's all from me. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.